Welcome to Art Around the House. Now, we're pretty much at this point in time stuck at home and not getting to go out and do a lot of the things we want to do, which makes it a perfect time to be creative. We have to be creative. We have to use our imaginations. And in this group of videos, what I want to show you is that if you are so inclined to use your imagination in an artistic way, that there are a lot of things that you can create just with materials you have around the house. Today I want to introduce you to one of my favorite artists, and her name is Maria Esther Sund. She is an artist who for years worked in Sonoma County, and she worked with bits and pieces. These bits and pieces she found around the house. Sometimes when she was out shopping, she'd pick up something that she saw and thought, "Oh, I can include this in my picture." Her pictures are collections of bits and pieces that end up telling a story. I love her work. It's nothing like mine. I have here one of her pictures that I want to show you. This started out just as a greeting card, but I loved it so much that I framed it, and it became a piece of art that hangs in my house now. This piece is, let me get it up here so you can see it, in a picture frame. I'll start back here, and it's just a hand. You see that? And it is placed into the picture frame using many different pieces of paper and other things she had sitting around her house. And then you just put them all together. She did a whole series of hands like this in greeting cards, and then, kind of like, "Hi." And then I bought several of them and framed them at home. And they make beautiful pieces of original art. You know, if you're already thinking about somebody's birthday, a holiday gift, a piece of original art is always something special that people will appreciate. So today we are going to make a picture out of bits and pieces we might be able to find around our house. There's a series of things that you're going to need. The first thing is a picture frame. Now, I'm one of those people, similar to Mary Esther in this situation, who, when I go out shopping, if I see a really good deal on something, I buy it, if I know that I'm going to be able to use it in my art later on. Picture frames are something I always keep handy for my students and for me. Next time you're out, or your parents are out, and you have a few extra dollars, grab yourself a picture frame. This one costs $1. Okay? You don't have to buy expensive frames. Check around the house. If you don't have a chance to go out, check around the house. Is there an old picture frame that's lying around with a picture that you don't really care about anymore in it? It doesn't matter the size. It can be very small. It can be much larger. I just happen to really like working with this frame, and I think it's a 6x8, something in that area. 8x10s are great, and on and on and on, whatever you feel like committing to. Now, this is your first thing. You want a picture frame. You're going to need a pair of scissors, and you're going to need some glue. I like plain old school glue, the white glue, but I don't squeeze it out of the bottle. Well, I do squeeze it out of the bottle. I squeeze it out of the bottle into a lid of some sort, just squeezing it out here, because I like to apply my glue with a paintbrush. Okay, so you might want a lid and a paintbrush and some white school glue. In addition, you are going to need a bunch of pieces of paper. Now, you can get these papers from anywhere. Now, I want to show you the collection that I have here that I'm going to draw from. Over here, and you can't quite see it, I have a series of wallpapers. Now, there's bits of wallpapers here. I have cut these wallpaper bits out of my, see if I can move this over a little bit. Ha! Now you can see them. I've cut my wallpapers out of a wallpaper book that I had, and I've got several different kinds that I'm looking at. These are just possibilities. I have no idea. In addition, I went up and rated my wrapping paper closet. I had holiday paper, I had birthday paper, I had tissue paper, which this is and which this is. I like the patterns. Then I am lucky enough that in my art studio I have handmade papers. You might have something that looks like a handmade piece of paper too. If you are fortunate enough to go out to an art store, look at the handmade papers that they have available. Some of them are very reasonably priced and they have little or no pattern but lots of texture. Texture is important in these processes. There's also things like aluminum foil, foil paper from packages. Look at all these bits and pieces with a new eye and see if you can find something that might work in your picture that we're going to create. I have magazine pages too that have colors that I think are interesting and kind of go with the other colors that, or contrast with the colors that I've already chosen. And I found this piece of ribbon. You'll notice that Mary Esther in her picture actually sewed in beads. Do you see those beads? She actually sewed these beads into her composition, stitched them in on a piece of heavy textured paper, and she sewed them in to make a pattern, and then she even took a little star and a bead and made kind of a ring on one finger. You can do something that complicated, or you can do what I'm going to do, which is just glue little bits of paper into my picture to make a texture. Texture. These pictures are very textural. When you're creating with bits and pieces, I don't want to call it a collage because we're not using, well, we're using 3 different kinds of paper, but remember in collage you need at least 3 different kinds of materials. And since I feel like they're all paper, I don't really want to call it a collage, but it's a nice creation that we're going to make out of many kinds of papers, basically, okay? So I think that's it. Other odds and ends, if you have something around the house that you think would be fun to put into your picture, whatever you think, just gather it together and get it around you. You might not use all of this. You might use it and more. But today, we're not going to draw, we're not going to paint, we're not going to use anything but our scissors to create, okay? So, step number 1, you have your picture frame, right? I want you to be careful of the glass, especially if you're buying cheap frames. Be careful of the glass inside the frame because it tends to be very thin and it breaks easily. But what we're interested in is the back piece. This is our basic background. This is the biggest part of our picture. Now I'm going to take that piece and I'm going to stick it up here. Move my bits out of the way so I can get this up here where you can see it easily. That is what I'm going to be working on. That is what will fit into my picture. Now from there, the first thing I have to think about is what papers are going to go with which. And what do I have to have papers that are similar, and I need contrast. Notice that in this painting, or this creation by Mary Esther Stunn, there are 2 neutrals, the gold and the brown. You could even use brown paper towel, couldn't you? The gold and the brown, and then she has 1 contrast. So we're kind of go with that idea. So we need a couple of papers that are going to work together and one that's going to be a contrast. Now, we can mess with this a little bit. We can try and put them together and see what we think. All right, so this is going to be my contrast. What are going to be my neutral colors? I could choose, I just love animal prints. So I might want to put an animal print in there. And I kind of like what I'm seeing right away when I put this one against the other is that this browns contrast nicely with that blue. And then I'm going to need another neutral, 2 neutrals, 1 contrast. Only I'm going to use them different. Oh, maybe not. 2 neutrals, 1 contrast. Let's see. I have a small pattern here. Well, that could work as a neutral against the blue. So I may, for this picture, choose to use these 3 pieces of paper. So for the moment, at any rate, I can take everything else down and put it to one side. Now, I'm not going to get rid of it because I may change my mind and decide to use more than just 3 pieces, which is perfectly okay. Since it is a small picture, at least mine is, I don't want to confuse people by putting too much information into it. So I want to keep it a little bit on the simple side so that people can look at it, see what my subject is, and enjoy it. Now, here in Mary Esther's painting or picture, she has created a hand. I like the symbol of the hand. I have a room in my house that has hands all over it. These hands are glove molds. They're pictures like this. They are hands from my grandchildren set into clay. And there are little carved hands out of wood with milagros on them. There's all kinds of things in this one room that have hands on them. But you don't have to make a hand picture. You could make a heart picture or a star picture. The thing I do want to warn you is you want to keep the subject fairly simple, because this is you want people to look at it simple. So you want to keep it fairly simple, okay? You can decide. All right, so now, which one of these is going to be my background? And I'm thinking that maybe this tissue might work really well as a background. You know, I'm going to need yet another piece of paper because here, Mary Esther is working on a white sheet of paper, and then she puts her basic brown on top of that, and then her gold, and then her hand. I don't have white, I have cardboard. Cardboard's kind of ugly to look at. So I might want to choose one more piece, in which case I'm kind of tempted to go with the polka dots. Love polka dots. You guys who know me know that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to put it on my cardboard, and then I'm going to cut it to the size of my cardboard. Does it have to be perfect? No. You know me. Perfect is boring. So the first thing I'm doing is I am cutting my polka dot paper, and this paper is light. You can always trim later. We don't have to have it be perfectly spaced and sized right now. So I'm going to glue this down here. Now this is tissue paper, so I'm going to need to be careful with my glue. I've got my glue here. Regular Elmer's white glue works really well. So I've put some in my paper, in my plate, and I've got my brush. Now remember, I wonder if I'm going to break the rules right away. Remember, the idea is you always put the glue on the littlest piece of paper. Well, I suppose I could say that this is smaller than this. Since I'm working vertically instead of having my paper down in front of me, it's almost easier if I put the glue on this piece. But this piece really is smaller than my polka dots. I'm just gonna glue along the edges for right now. Maybe a little bit in the middle. All right, there we go. And now I'm going to take and put my base piece right on top. I kind of like the texture. That's what I wanted to see what was going to happen. Now look, right now you can see through it. I don't know how that's going to work out in the end, but art is always an experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment. Okay, so that was my first piece. Now, I need a neutral, and my neutral is going to be darker. Now I'm going to come to this one. And the idea is that this piece is going to be smaller than the white piece that was underneath. Do you see that? we have the white piece, and then we have a smaller brown piece. So now I'm going to just eyeball. When you're doing fine art, you don't really use a lot of measuring, perfect measuring, like with a ruler or anything like that. I just like to eyeball. Okay. Let's see. All right. It's going to be interesting if when my glue dries, that paper is going to look white again. It's tissue, so it's very light, and it could be that it's going to end up being that beige color. I don't really mind since the cardboard is covered with polka dots. Okay, so now I'm going to take, and because my frame comes in a little bit. Look at it from the back side. Do you see how it comes in a little bit? It covers over the edge, and that's where the glass in the back fits in. And I want to make sure that this piece does not cover up all of my polka dots. So I'm going to make it a little smaller. And I'm going to put this piece, I'm going to glue this piece right near the middle. Do we want it dead center? No. Let's make our picture dynamic. I'm going to make it a little higher and just a little bit off to one side. So now glue always goes on the smaller piece. So now I am putting the glue, and you don't have to glue it down totally. I've put my glue on my animal print, and I'm going to set it in here a little bit higher and hopefully a little bit off to one side. Certainly doesn't have to be perfect. All right, I like that. Okay, good. My first neutral. My second neutral I decided was going to be this piece. So this piece is going to be smaller, and it's going to sit in the middle. Now this is actually setting up my composition. This is where people are going to be looking first. No, that's not true. They'll look at whatever I draw finally into my picture. This kind of is what draws the eye in and holds it to the picture. So I want to make sure I really draw my viewer's eye in. So I'm going to cut a piece of this. And again, this is going to be smaller still than my animal print. Too big. You just judge with your eyes. Again, it's all about the eyes. All right, so there we go. That looks pretty good to me. I kind of am happy with how that fits in there. So again, I glue on the back of the smaller piece. Now you might have noticed I'm only gluing on two sides. I'm not gluing the whole thing down flat. Not necessary, because our frame is going to hold it in flat. Here we are. Again, I don't want to get it perfectly in the middle, and it's not really straight, so that's good, because that's kind of interesting. What do you think so far? All right. Now, I am ready for my subject. And as we said, Mary Esther liked to do hands in this series that she did. I'm thinking, I think I want to do a hand too, okay? But now we have to be careful. I'm not going to just cut out a hand yet. I want my hand to be just about the size of my animal print, but not as big as my animal print, so that's still a little large. Class, I'm cutting up a lot of pieces, but I'm not going to throw these pieces away. I really like to keep my extra pieces. I have a folder, bits and pieces, and it is for collage and other such processes. All right, okay, I think that will be fine. So now I am going to be very brave, and I am just going to simply cut out a hand. All right. Let's see if I can do this. One finger. Second finger is going to be taller. Third finger will be a little taller still. Is that right? Okay, so that's going to go right up to the top. Fourth finger, a little shorter. And then thumb. Oh boy. My hand's not going to look it's not going to look like Mary Esther's, I can tell you that. But that's all right. This is my art. Here it is, class. My hand. All right. I'm going to make this little finger a little smaller. Okay. And then I am going to be able to glue. Look at that. That should probably come. I kind of like this. This is a little bit abstract, isn't it? Here's the tricky part. When you set it in to your composition, you don't want it fit it inside your animal print. You want it to raise up above the animal print. You want it to be not quite in the center. And this way you get to see our animal print clearly, you get to see our swirls, and then you get to see the background. But when the hand pushes up into the polka dots, it makes the polka dots a part of the composition. If we just put it inside here, then it's kind of like, why did you bother with the polka dots? When we pull it up above the polka dots, then the polka dots become a part of the composition too. And we want those polka dots to be there. They're pretty important. All right, let's take a look. I'm going to glue this down now, and we'll see what I get. Art is always an experiment. Now, I am gluing on every one of my fingers, and oops, my table too. It might be a good idea to put down some newspaper before you start doing any gluing, if you're messy like me. You know, there are messy artists and there are neat artists. We've talked about Pablo Picasso before. He was probably one of the messiest artists ever, and probably one of the best. All right. I am going to set my hand in here. I don't have to have it be straight. Okay, here we go. And again, if it's not laying down flat, it's not going to matter entirely, because remember, when we put it in the frame, it's going to stick more. Not bad. Remember, I had that piece of, where'd it go? Here we are. I had this piece of ribbon, and I kind of thought, instead of using beads, I have some beads, I just don't know where they are. But instead of using beads in my picture, maybe I want to use, oh, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to use a combination, because I really like the greens in this photograph. Do you see the greens in this photograph? They're really very beautiful. And I don't have any little beads to put in my picture, but between the green in my ribbon and the greens in the background, maybe I can make some little tiny shapes to add to my hand picture. Now we have a large, clear shape that is our hand, easy to read. And now I'm going to cut up these little tiny greens, and they're going to run away. I think I'll pick them up with my glue brush. There, I've got a little tiny green on my glue brush. I'm going to pull this off. If you have tweezers, tweezers are an excellent thing to use. And it's got glue on it, so I'm going to stick that to my hand. And I'm going to do that to another one. Got glue in my brush, and then I'm going to stick this down, if I can find it, stick this down to my hand, using the back of the brush to kind of push it in. Let's see. We're setting up a composition, right? So I remember my favorite compositional tool, the magic triangle. Let's see if we can get one in here now. All right, there we go. So I have a little magic triangle going there, but I'm not done with this because I'm going to take some of these cool greens out of this piece of a magazine. We'll see what happens when I cut them up small. These are a little bigger than the other ones. That's okay. Let's start with 3. Magic triangle again. All right, I've got one here. One here. Come on. Oh no, my magic triangle left. Okay. Glue another piece. Stick it in here. And when I'm done, the thing that's going to be interesting is I'm going to end up with 2 little green magic triangles in the middle of my glove. There we go. And just because I can't resist, I am going to put another little green piece falling off my glove. I just can't resist it. These little pieces are hard to work with. Tweezers is a great tool. There we go. All right. Oh, I feel like I need a ring too. She had a nice ring on the finger. I kind of want to have that ring in my finger too. So what I'm going to do is add another piece of paper, just a little bit, to make a ring on that finger. I love the way Mary Esther Stun did it because in her picture, she hasn't really made a ring at all. She's just put in a star with a bead on it. Do you see that? And it implies that there is a ring on the finger. But I'm going to go ahead and make a ring shape. Take a little rectangle. I'm going to curve off the corners. Sort of. Then I'm going to put some glue on the back of that. And I'm going to take this and put this on my ring finger. Oh, I do that, and then I feel like I need a jewel. What do you think? Does it need a jewel? I want a jewel. What kind of a jewel can I use? Now this is where it's so much fun to look at all your different materials that you have laying around. Ooh, in this picture, I see some reflections in the pool that are very similar to my glove. So let's see if I can cut out a jewel and attach it to my ring. This is going to be a big jewel. See what that does. Again, remember, art is always an experiment. If you don't like it, you can always peel it off or cover it up with something else. Let's see. I feel like that's too close to the color of my ring, so we don't really appreciate it. There's a darker blue here. Let's try using that. I'm not even going to take that one off. I'm going to just leave it there and glue on top of it. We'll see what that does. All right. Hey, my ring's falling. I'm losing my ring. Oh, that's better. Sure wish I had a glittery something. If I had glitter, I could use glitter. If I had glitter glue, that would be even better. But alas, I don't seem to have any of those right now. Of course, you're not pressed for time, so you can, of course, go out and find whatever else you want to add to it. But at this point, I'm going to call it done. Now, we've only been working on this for half an hour, and we have already created an amazing picture. Let me show you how it looks once I've framed it. And the thing is so wonderful, I didn't even cut off those tissue edges because they just fold over easily. I'm folding down the clips at the back so the picture doesn't fall out. And here is my finished project in 30 minutes. Hey, where did that other green piece come from? Oh, I see it unfolded. Kind of cool, huh? A surprise. There we go. How simple it is to make art out of bits and pieces. Art around the house. Next week, I'm going to have something else to do. I'm going to look around at the materials I've got laying around. Now, sometimes it is going to require you to purchase something. And in fact, I'm thinking last year I wanted so much to do an acrylic painting class with my artists. And perhaps we can do some acrylic painting. If you have acrylics, yay. If you don't worry about it until we get closer to that time. But this is a chance for you to maybe collect some materials before we get to that point. All right, so here we go. I could even take the time to sign my piece. Mary Esther, a really wonderful artist. And then here's a Nancy Ricciardi. I copied her. Is it okay to copy in an art? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we all copy each other, more or less, all the time. So here's my copy of a hand picture, and I gotta say I like it. I'm gonna be interested to see what happens when this dries, if we see the white again, or if that's just going to be an interesting beige mark. All right? Okay, hope you enjoyed that little bits and piece bit of art. Art around the house. I'll see you again next week. We'll see what we come up with then. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh, and by the way, if you finish it and you like it and you framed it, please send me a picture. I love seeing your work. Okay, have a great day, artists.